Hey guys, welcome back to the Jersey Comic Crew. On today's episode, Rob and I are going over Loki episode 4, the Nexus event. Our review, our reactions coming up right now. Come on inside.
What's up, everybody? We are the Jersey Comic Crew. I'm Rob Moran. That's Chris Heller. And today we are talking Loki, episode 4 of the Nexus event. This is our review and reaction of the episode. So, guys, of course, there's going to be spoilers in this. So, this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't watched the episode, please pause this, go watch the episode, lose your mind, and then come back here so we can try to make sense of what just happened. And now, guys, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the episode, make sure you hit that like button, that comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff that we need to keep growing and make more content for you. Now, Chris, the episode finally gives us what we wanted last week. Last week, I said I needed something more from Sylvie. We needed her origin, and this week we got it. We saw her pretty much getting kidnapped as a young kid. She's playing on the steps, playing with a little Viking ship and a little warrior woman. The TVA agents come in there. They just snatched her up because the Nexus event was being caused, even though she was just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, that's really the base of her story, and then we see her get captured, brought into the TVA. I liked it. It was a little bit more information, but just like Sylvie said, hey, why did I get kidnapped? What was my Nexus event? We didn't get that answer, right? And I know that we're going to get it probably in the next week, but I'm like, is it the fact that Loki was born a female? Was that it? And she has to get taken away? But, like, she's older here. She's like an 8-year-old. Who somehow, by the way, managed to grab this time capsule, escaped through a door, and was on the run from the TVA for years, and figured out she had to be in an apocalyptic event. Something isn't adding up here with her.
Yeah, you're right, Rob. And it almost seemed like she was taken just because she was alive, right? Like she wasn't bothering anybody. It kind of seemed in the beginning when we had like the Miss Minutes video and everyone's kind of going through. Like if you do something to diverge the timeline in some way, right? Like some bad thing or you make a weird decision, that's where they come in and, kind of try to correct it.
Maybe she played with the wrong toys.
Yeah, I mean, her toys were cool because we saw, like, she had a Valkyrie toy, which, was kind of a hint, hint, wink, wink, as well as the Fenris toy. So a lot of, like, Thor Ragnarok stuff was in there, as well as, like, the Viking ship that we see in, like, Dark World and everything else. But young Sylvie was kind of just there minding her own business, which I did like the little bit of an origin backstory of her as a kid. And the girl who played her was very familiar. She looked like she is Judith in The Walking Dead right now. So like older Judith. Yeah, if anyone's still keeping up with The Walking Dead, I know I gave up a while ago, but if you're still keeping up with The Walking Dead, you recognize her immediately because she's Judith in The Walking Dead, who's supposedly pretty badass.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, like the entirety of this beginning was very much more like, hey, you're right. We got some Sylvie stuff, right? We got some more information of her origin, how this kind of started, how, the progression of her like anger and confusion caused her to be this way. And then it became like more questions for the TVA of like, well, then if she wasn't doing anything, then why did you take her out?
Why did we take her?
You kind of created the monster. Like, this is on you.
I still think she might be working with someone because how does she avoid the TVA as a young kid for so long, right? You know what I mean? Unlike Loki, the first instance he got captured, the adult Loki, he's done with, right? So maybe he has some insider knowledge, or maybe the judge was letting her get away for so long because she didn't want to kill a kid. I don't know.
That's interesting too. I mean, we see her do like the slip, right? Out of, Ravana's pickpocket almost, which was cool to see her back in the day as like an actual guard where like she's clearly moved up the ranks in some way. And we got a lot of information about her because she is someone who I suspected being a bigger role in the overall arc of not only this show, but going forward into the MCU, but there wasn't enough info on her completely. So now it's kind of connecting the dots. So let me read you a little bit something here that I wrote down with her.
Gotcha. Sure.
So we saw that she had an A23 logo, right? The same thing as like, we know B-15 is one. We know that C20 was the girl that Sylvie, kind of warped her mind.
Yeah, people get a name and a number.
So with A23, when Sylvie kind of grabs, gets her time porter and goes back, it seems to be like this vendetta she's been trying to fix since then. And so her name is Ravana Renslayer. Now that is a big time name in the comic books.
Why?
In the comics, she's from the future, like the year, like I think it's like 2077 or something, and her planet was invaded by Kang the Conqueror. Now Kang,
everybody's had attention now.
Yeah, everyone paid attention. So Kang actually falls in love with her. And there's this huge love triangle where she's like royalty. She's like a princess.
It's forbidden.
It's forbidden love. And she wants nothing to do with him because she sees him as like this time-traveling commoner.
He's
like
a bad guy.
A peasant, if you will.
Yeah. Oh. Not even because he's bad, because he's poor.
He's not poor. He's a time traveler. Like, can time travelers be poor? I guess.
Can they be rich?
I mean, the reason you would time travel, partially, I'm sure, is to make some type of income.
Maybe. I don't know.
To have a disposable income.
Maybe they're above it and they don't care about money because they
like,
can go
I don't
anywhere.
need time travel. I have riches. Yeah. But like, so Ravonna Renslayer actually ends up falling in love with Kang. Kang's like, general at the time betrays Kang because their original rule is, hey, everywhere we go, we are taking that planet. We're taking their resources. We're doing this and this and this and this and this. Kang says, no, we're not doing that because Kang is smitten with Ravonna Renslayer. As this battle happens, the general fires something at Kang to kill him. She, in an act of love, jumps in front of it, sacrificing herself and saving Kang while the Avengers are there to help. So Kang, and the Avengers team up, and she ends up dying in this act through love, which I know you would love, Rob, because you're all about that stuff.
This is all like the end of a Disney movie.
Yep. So
keep going.
So after like General Batlag like did the the epic like slow motion shot and she does the jump in, she dies. So Ravonna Renslayer being A23, what does that all have to do with kind of all this? Her first appearance is in Avengers 23. So
go Mephisto confirmed.
So I don't want to.
Okay.
And part of the reason I didn't want to go too far down this rabbit hole is one, we have another episode coming up that I'm going to go really down the rabbit hole.
Of course.
But number two, right? We've seen TVA kind of codes before and they weren't really in that meaning. There's so many connections to this, and now possibly being the wife or bride
this
of
is just
Kang,
another red flag for her.
And I don't want to go down the Mephisto rabbit hole of saying Kang shown up, but it looks and quacks like a duck right now.
Speaking of looking and quacking like ducks, Donald Duck. No, in all seriousness.
I got excited.
No, I was like, I don't have anything with Donald Duck. But more talking about her, right? So Owen Wilson's character was talking to her later. He's like trying to like, hey, something's not adding up here. Where can I interrogate the other Loki variant, which we know as Sylvie? And she's like, nobody's talking to her. And he's like, whoa. Like, she's like very strict about it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, what happened to C20? That was C20. That's the agent that was enchanted by Sylvie, Loki, Enchantress, whatever we want to call her. And now she realizes the truth that the time variants work for the TVA and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, she died. And he's like, what? Like, I left her and she seemed pretty fine. She seemed maybe a little out of it, but she was fine. And she's like, nope. She stopped talking. She stopped slurring her words. She just lost all control. And I'm like, all right, obviously you're hiding something from Owen Wilson's character. And this is where the seeds of doubt start to form in Owen Wilson's mind. Like, hey, maybe they're not who they say they are. And then, the final nail in the coffin for Owen Wilson's character was eventually when they did find Loki in the apocalypse, when some crazy event was starting to happen, which I'll get to in a second. And then, he's interrogating Loki. Loki's like, yeah, you're lying to yourself, bud. Hey, yeah, you're a variant. And now Owen Wilson's like, oh, the whole thing comes unraveled. Wow. Look at all this. Wow.
He says everything but wow. Can we?
He doesn't say wow.
Is that in his contract where he's like, listen, I'm not doing the wow thing?
I think
just
he's
to let you
say
guys
wow
know.
In the last episode.
I don't think he's doing it.
I'm holding out.
I hope he does everything like but wow. Like where art thou? Or like like now
after credit scene of Loki.
Want some chow?
It's just him looking out the window at the chaos and he goes, wow.
That would be an amazing like shawarma moment.
Yes.
But I will see. We'll put a little bet on that. We'll do a little wager later. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think one, that was a great scene too, where you're kind of like, Loki, tell him,
yes,
so we'll believe you. And like he's hitting him over the head with like, you're this, and you're this. Screw you, blah blah blah. But even before that, so when we're on like Lamentus 1, when the world's about to like get destroyed, right? We have this little like moment between Sylvie and Loki, which is something that you and I kind of alluded to in the last episode, where I kind of had this theory, which was a little messed up, of like the only person he could truly fall in love with is a version of himself, right?
And
like,
I guess like him falling in love, and like almost his character Morbius explains this a little bit more. He's like, you falling in love with a variant version of yourself is world exploding, and that was probably what caused the event. And me, I'm like, oh, I'm all for love. I don't like this. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about like him loving himself that I'm like, I'm not a fan of.
I mean, it's not really himself though. It's a female alternate reality version. It's weird. You know what it's like? It's like people that marry like a second cousin. It's just like it's like I don't really understand why this is a thing.
It's like you're not wrong, but it feels
but you kind of are.
Yeah. Or all like the step sibling adult films that are on the internet right now.
Wow,
it's
Rob,
like,
tell us more about what you do in your free time.
I don't like that shit. It freaks me out. I'm like, I guess it's legal, but it just feels wrong. That's what this whole Loki Berry thing. I guess it's legal, but it's just wrong for me. I don't know.
But it's so right at the same time.
No. Yeah, but yeah, here's the other thing. I was rooting for Jon Snow. I was rooting for Jon Snow to hook up with Daenerys. That didn't bother me at all.
I
don't know what it is. Anyway, continue.
It's all situational, people.
It's all situational.
But yeah, so like we get that point where Mobius and like B-15 are looking for them. You could tell B-15, like her brain is already scrambled because she saw something, and that can't be reversed and no one knows yet. And there's this quick shot on the screen as like there's this new tendril that's going a completely like different direction, which we assume is due to Loki and Sylvie's connection and that event.
Them falling for each other.
There's also a shot of Morag. Do you remember Morag from Guardians?
Which one was that?
So Morag's literally the first planet in the first Guardians where Peter Quill's dancing through and he gets the power stone.
Yes.
So what I didn't even realize, I totally forgot, Morag is also in the Annihilation comic. So it is a part of like that Kree space, that Kree area. Because obviously like Peter Quill gets taken by like Kree. Mm-hmm. So that is still like something that kind of connects the overall universe within it. We don't see Morag at all, obviously, but it's on the screen as like, I think it was like a possible location that Loki could be at, probably in a different time. Maybe it blows up or something.
Maybe. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a cool callback. One thing I do have a question about is this memory prison, this like hellscape that Loki gets sent to, right? Because you think the whole purpose of him being there is to soften him up, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make him like weaker, to get him feel bad. And it's just this memory where he cuts off Lady Sif's hair and he gets kicked in the nuts, right? But then
repeatedly stomped in the nuts.
Apparently, he could change what happens in it, right? Because he talks to her, he admits that like he's terrible, he's always going to be alone, and she's like, "You are," and then doesn't punch him, right? It doesn't hit him or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't understand the whole point of that area, like why that memory to show him like, "Hey, I'm going to be alone forever because I decided to play a joke and cut her pigtails off like a little kid," you know?
I mean, there's two aspects to it. One is the moral complexity, right? Where it's, hey, in order for this to stop, I have to admit something that's very tough for me to admit to myself. Okay. Right? Which I think goes along with the societal issue stuff we talked about last week, where there's going to be a lot of self-reflection, a lot of decision making, and you know, if I'm going to be alone forever, do I matter? If is that a mentality I need to have or should have, compared to, instead of dipping into that side of things, maybe, hey, face what you did wrong and learn from it and change. And I think it's kind of like a catch-22 where, hey, this is going to keep going on loop and it's going to keep happening, and Lady Sif's going to keep coming out here and you're going to get stomped in the nuts 47 times by a warrior goddess, and you're going to lay on the ground crying until you kind of that pride, that anger, that kind of like, nope, I'm perfect situation kind of goes down, and you have to deal with yourself, which is the hardest thing. And that's an actual Norse mythology situation. So in real Norse mythology, Lady Sif is actually married to Thor, and she has like golden blonde hair that she's very fond of. It has like, you know, it helps with her like mystical powers and prowess in Norse mythology. And Loki does cut her hair off almost as like a F you to Thor and her, but more so to get at Thor for his anger and mischief than it is Sif. Yeah. So that was something like a little nugget they took out of the real Norse mythology, which I thought was a nice touch.
Now, while that's happening, in the other room, there's Sylvie, right? Sylvie's in there. She's not getting tortured. She's pretty much just chilling and waiting. B-15 comes in, And this is where the unraveling starts to happen for B-15, right? They go into the interdimensional portal. They arrived in a Armageddon event at the Roxxon gas station, right?
Yes.
And
they went back.
Sylvie shows her all the stuff that happened before she was a TVA agent, letting her know that she had a life on Earth before this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now the tendrils of the TVA are becoming undone even quicker.
So the line that hit me harder than any line this episode was in that scene. It was even harder than the one where it's like, you know, where Sylvie's like, is this our lot in life to be kind of losers and hopeless? It's when she kind of opens up B-15's mind, who was great because it's that character, because she was so strictly like her job, and kind of like the douchey security guard poking you with a stick.
Yeah, she didn't bend for anything.
She didn't bend for anything. So when she finally bends and is like, then show me, the line where she's just like, oh my God, I was happy. And it was that simple line of just like, you could tell how distraught and painful it was to realize that. I thought was a magically touching moment in that sequence of like chaos and craziness.
It's kind of cool to see how like two gods of mischief, right? Two like demigods or whatever you want to call them, cause all this. And like Mobius even said, hey, we had like the Kree here, vampires, even Titans here, and then it caused this kind of trouble that two Lokis are doing.
Yeah, man. So that was like, you know, if anyone's Easter egg hunting, that was the biggest, most obvious one too. And there's like a small one before that, which I connected to comic books, Rob, as you know, I'm a comic book man. And so where Sylvie is in that little like time, you know, manipulation station where we saw like, you know, Mobius play Loki his life over.
Yeah.
It's Time Theater number 47. And that number kind of registered to me where Sylvie was, because back in the original What If comic, and we know, you know, Marvel's doing a cartoon in a couple months about What If.
Yeah.
But back in the comic book, that was a what if scenario where Loki was worthy of wielding Mjolnir and was like using the hammer, but still kind of Loki. So it kind of upped his powers and craziness. Might be parallel to like, hey, these are variants. This is like different kinds of Lokis. All these variants could be what if scenarios. So I thought that was a nice little touch. But yeah, man, that Titans, Kree, vampires. We've obviously seen Kree, right? We see Kree and Guardians.
We haven't seen vampires yet, though.
We haven't seen vampires yet, but we've seen Kree and Guardians. We've seen Kree as well as in Captain Marvel. And but Titans, I'm guessing that has to kind of foreshadow either Thanos himself or variants of Thanos who have also might be connected to why there's so many Infinity Stones laying around the TVA.
I would assume so, right? Because if he's messing with time and he's doing the wrong thing in his scheme, they probably grabbed him, reset it, and then like that Thanos has to try again, essentially. He's like taking over the world with the Infinity Gauntlet in the wrong way, and then they stop him.
Or they zap him with the, you know, what do they call it? Pruning? They prune him.
They prune him, which we'll get to because we don't even know what that means anymore now.
Yeah, right.
But like my thing is like if it's Thanos with the gauntlets and you're just coming up, you're just people with sticks. How did that happen? But
I gotta be very sneaky. Gotta be very sneaky.
Maybe very sneaky, talented but ninja. Very sneaky like
very
maybe vampires and Blade.
Yes. So, I mean, it's got to be hinting towards that, right? Because we know Blade's coming in phase 5-ish of the MCU. We know Mahershala Ali's already been cast.
Yep.
The other vampires, though, I'm thinking also the evil side of the vampires, right? Could it be Dracula? Could there be an instance with a variant Dracula that took over the Earth? Could it be
It's Spider-Man related. It's Spider-Man
Morbius?
related. Let me tell you why it's Spider-Man. Because in the Spider-Man comics not too long ago, they had the time-traveling vampires that would go and kill other spiders in alternate timelines. And then Madam Web was like, we can't deal with this shit no more. Let's put a stop to them.
Her exact phrasing from the comic.
That's exact word for word.
Can't deal with this shit anymore.
I can't deal with this shit anymore.
She's Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon.
What if it's the TVA? The TVA is like, no, vampire. You can't be doing this. Let's stop this. And
so you're thinking of Morlun. Morlun, the spider hunter vampires?
Yeah.
That could be a huge one. We know there's a Morbius, the Living Vampire movie with Jared Leto coming out for Sony that's in the Spider-Man universe. So the vampire thing, I think, is a big hint to a lot of future like dark magic stuff. We know we're getting Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
We know Wanda's in that. You know, we know Mephisto's coming eventually. That could be a huge tie into that as well.
Do we know that he's coming eventually?
Oh, yeah.
Are we just like strongly believing?
I'm still throwing coal in that fire on that train, buddy. I'm not getting off. But yeah, I think that's a hint to kind of almost this culmination of things, whether it's Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Blade, all of the above for variants in that situation.
All right, so we're talking about big bad baddies and strong people. We got to talk about the Timekeepers. We finally get the audience to the Timekeepers. They get walked in, and then we see the 3 Timekeepers. And the first time I'm seeing them, I'm kind of met with like a little mixed emotion, right? Because I'm like, oh my god, these are the strongest people in the world.
Like in the beginning of the episode, where she's
when they walk into to see them, right? The very instance when they walk in, and I'm like, oh my god, we're seeing them. This is amazing. And then at the same time, I'm like, something's wrong here. Something's off here. Like I knew instinctively in my heart of hearts, I was like, this isn't real. And then I'm hearing them talking. I'm like, these aren't the guys, man. These are illusions, something like that. Why would they be brought here? Nothing's making sense. And even the Lokis are like, why'd you bring us here if you're not scared of us? And then like a badass Sylvie takes a dagger, a knife, a giant sword, a sharp weapon, if you will.
Her sword, yeah.
Yes. And it throws it into the guy's face and his head comes off. I'm like, what? And it's a robot. I'm like, what is this? Ultron? What is it? Like I the big 3? Yeah, it's aliens. It's wizards
and robots. That's all. Everything.
It's an alien robot, right? Like who?
It's an alien wizard robot.
Ah, it is.
Somewhere Sam Wilson, you get that meme of of Sam Wilson doing like the smile thing where he's just nodding.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, it's one of the big 3.
But yeah, so that was a big scene overall in the fact of one, which you skipped over. Mobius goes back.
I didn't want to talk about that.
And gets Loki.
Yep.
And Mobius and Loki like team up, and I'm like, oh my god, they're actually friends now. Like this is.
I was rooting for it.
This is big. I felt like the parent where like his first grader child like finally made a friend. You know what I mean?
Your two kids are getting along. Like yeah.
You're like handing them like bowls of like goldfish or something. You're just like happy for them.
And then what happens?
So then Mobius gets pruned.
What are you doing, Marvel?
But obviously,
terrible decision.
So it happened, and I'm like, oh, he's not dead. Like he's obviously not dead.
I was so mad. I was like, what do you? I was like, I mean, I don't know. In that moment, I was just so overwhelmed with emotion. It's even logically thing. My logical faculty shut down. I was running on pure adrenaline and emotion for the rest of the episode.
And you just went into like Beastie Boys video mode.
Yo, Beastie Boys, call me. You need a big boy.
I love Beastie Boys. But anyway, a little Easter egg of Rob's real life right there. So, like, we have that moment, and then we have B-15 come by and save Sylvie, kind of like Mobius to Loki situation.
Yep.
And she helps Sylvie. She throws her the sword. And now we have this epic fight scene in front of the Timekeepers, who are these glorified robots, very much Wizard of Oz-esque. Rob, yes. I know you're a huge fan of the Wizard of Oz. There was a lot of Wizard of Oz parallels.
Great and powerful Oz. That's what that was.
Absolutely great and powerful Oz. The golden doors and the kind of hallway that was golden reminded me a lot of the Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
If you notice closely, like we talked about this earlier a little bit about the time logos on the door. They're kind of like infinity marks, but they're also like the the time twisters where the sand runs through, if that's the right name. But yeah, that was the hourglass. Thank you, Rob.
Time twisters.
Master's degree in nothing. So the aspect of having this situation now changing the show completely, right? Who's behind the scenes? Who's actually controlling this? Is this even real? Is time going to variant and explode and do everything? Check out our next video for that. Plug. But so that is a great scene. I don't think Mobius is dead. I also don't think we obviously know Loki's not dead. So therefore, I don't think Mobius is dead either.
Yeah. So like Loki gets pruned, right? And it's like he gets taken out by the evil girl. What's her name again? Ravonna?
Ravonna, yeah, Ravonna.
Ravonna takes her out. I'm like, all right, Ravonna has to be behind everything. And I'm like, all right. At that moment, I'm like, all right, Loki's not dead, right? It's not like we're transitioning the guard here, right? It's new Loki. Part of me was I was scared because maybe they could do that. They could. The internet was freaking out about this episode. I'm like, maybe it is. Then we get the after credit scene, right? We see Loki wakes up, and I'm like, okay, where are you? I was like, all right. So obviously when people get pruned, they get sent somewhere else. Maybe it's the prison. Maybe it's, I don't know, wherever they get. And then he wakes up, and then he looks around. The world is destroyed. Everything is over. And then we see all these variant Lokis come up to him. One, most notably, is like, what, Kid Loki. And then I guess there's a crocodile Loki. And then
so great.
Or that's the pet of Kid Loki. I don't know who that is. And then all these other ones. And they're like, hey, come with us. And then we're going to get
come with done. Me if you want to live, like Terminator style.
Like a whole Terminator scene. And I'm like, okay, I guess the Lokis are now going to team up against the real TVA. I don't know.
We're not going to take it. They're going to just march. There's like 1,000 Lokis. We're going to because everyone wanted to sing it. But yeah, no, we finally find out Richard E. Grant's role, who was cast early on in Loki's production. He's the original classic Loki from Avengers 1 in that terrible, like, green and yellow, like, shitty suit, kind of like Vision and WandaVision during, like, the Halloween episode.
Yes, I love the acknowledgments of the costumes from the comics. It's great.
Absolutely amazing. So then, yes, we in the credits, I actually looked through the credits, we have Croco Loki, which, even though I believe that was an alligator because it had a rounder snout, don't ask how I know that.
Okay.
And the big, like almost like Terry Crews like Loki with Mjolnir is known as Boastful Loki, and we have Kid Loki. So
and he had Mjolnir, right? Didn't he have Mjolnir?
It looked like he had a version of Mjolnir where it looked like there was like
a hammer,
almost like a little bit of glass or something in the middle where it had like electricity flowing. But yeah, he had like a version of Mjolnir. So obviously these seem to be other variants who were sent there. Now, the tables have turned, right? Sylvie is the last one standing. She doesn't know where Loki is. Loki gets taken out, also very similar to how he killed Phil Coulson in Avengers, like through the back, kind of like quick. But now he's in this kind of beaten down New York. If you notice, Avengers Tower's in the background. So,
I didn't. Okay.
This could be an alternate universe where either Loki won and the Chitauri destroyed New York, because we have like the destroyed Avengers Tower, and we know kind of Avengers is the kind of nexus point. Plug there for when this story takes place, right? Our Loki was taken out after that. So mixed with the fact that, you have all these other Lokis, could this be a dumping ground of like, hey, we know the Lokis were hiding in apocalyptic events.
Yeah.
Is this where they get dumped after they're pruned after the apocalypse event is over? Like if there's a remnant of that Earth, but like no one's there, is it kind of like a trash yard for like people that they don't want in the timeline or something like that?
Maybe it's like their what was it, like in the world Australia was where we set all the prisoners, right? Maybe it's their version of that, right? Maybe you just send all of them there that we can't handle anymore, and then they're gone. But then, like, you think of all the TVA ones that they pruned, but maybe most variants don't get pruned; they get just turned into other employees, right? And maybe this is like the select of the select, right?
Wherever Mobius is, could it be his past life, right? He mentioned the jet ski again.
I'm thinking he's in another version of his past life. I think for most people, they probably get to that, right? They get into a dream state. Maybe Loki's mind is just too strong, and he doesn't get under the influence of like mental visions of himself, right? So that's why he could break out with the other Lokis and move forward. Maybe everybody else is on that planet, but they're just unconscious, lying there. And like I said, maybe not everybody's there. Maybe it's only like the select few that cause a lot of problems because everybody else can be turned into employees somewhere else.
It reminded me of Rick and Morty a lot, the latest Rick and Morty, where like there was like the different kind of variants of Rick and Morty and no one knew who was real and not, and everyone's just killing each other, which is a great episode if you haven't seen it.
And with that, guys, that is our episode. Loki episode 4, the Nexus event. That is our review and reaction. Let us know down in the comments below what was your favorite moment from this crazy episode.
And guys, thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up, like if you can. It helps the channel out so much. If you're brand new, subscribe and turn on those notifications. You don't want to miss any more Loki videos. We have one coming up next about a couple of huge theories you don't want to miss. Make sure you follow us on our social medias, Instagram and Twitter. And as always, I'm Chris Heller. That is Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we'll see you next time.